This is a Discovery Optics PRS, but unless you do your shopping on AliExpress, you may have never seen or heard of this brand. Recently, this scope has gotten a lot of attention from gun tubers for its impressive spec sheet and even more impressive low price. So we're going to find out on this episode of Moondog Industries, does the ED PRS live up to the hype? Alright, I know many of you don't like unboxing videos, but this thing comes with so many extras, I really thought it was worth noting and going through them. It has a quality control checklist, which they went through quite a bit of aspects of the scope. This looks pretty legit, and I've never seen something this thorough included with a scope. I mean, apart from some really high-end European scopes, but for a budget scope, really never. It has a pretty decent instruction manual. It has some actually good tips in here for beginners on how to zero out your scope, so always read your instruction manual. Again, that's not unusual. Chamois cloth, a little bit unusual, because usually they'll just send you a piece of microfiber cleaning cloth, just a little piece of fabric. This one's an actual chamois, so that's not bad. But here are the unusual bits. It has a scope leveling kit. Now, I've only seen these included as an aftermarket accessory, but this is to level out your scope on your rail. Your average shooter probably isn't going to necessarily need this. In fact, I tend to just be more concerned with whether or not my scope is level to the horizon, regardless of whether or not it's square to the rail. Just stick it in that slot and you slide it up so that it mates up to the bottom of your scope, the base there, and that squares you to your rail. So that's this is a nice little accessory. Comes with a decent set of scope rings, and a lot of scopes do come with scope rings, but these are pretty decent. These are high profile Picatinny, and they're 34mm like the tube on this scope. Now, actually pretty good looking scope rings. Got lightning cuts there. It's got four bolts on there. Nice recoil lug. A little bit of rough milling at the bottom of this. I don't know if you can see here. Two sets of scope rings, extra screws should you need them, and it's nice that they included the amount of foot-pounds you want to put for your torque on those. And is this another? Oh, I guess it's a spec sheet. Okay. Here's something really unusual. 3 sunshades. This is crazy. I mean, usually some scopes will give you a sunshade. This gives you 3, and this is a little ridiculous if you ask me in terms of the number of sunshades they include with it. And you can attach all of them together. There we go. There we go. Comes with 2 shorter ones and 1 longer one, and oh my gosh, this thing is practically the length of the entire scope. It practically will double your the length of your scope if you attach this onto this. So for those of you who are really doing extreme long range and really don't want to have any chance of light bleed or reflection off of the front of your scope, yeah. And the last 2 items, well, it has a removable throw lever, so that's a nice to have, and not that unusual. But the final piece of unusual kit that they included on this is this photo grade lens cleaner. Now, it's not super expensive, but it's nice that they included this on there. It's got a brush, a soft brush for cleaning your lens of any lint or debris, and the other end has this nano fiber texture on there, and it's really great for removing fingerprints and grease spots from lenses. So I use this for my camera gear. It's nice that they included it with their scopes. So there you go. Let's take a look at the scope itself now. So let's clear some space here. This is a very beefy scope, I have to say. I mean, this makes the Arkin turrets look svelte by comparison. This thing is just monstrous. But listen to that. Very nice and loud and very tactile positive. And it has 10 mils of per rotation. It's non-locking, neither is the windage. Windage is a little less loud, but still pretty darn loud and tactile positive. They are resettable. The top one is resettable with a simple coin screw on the top. This one requires using an Allen wrench on 3 or 4 set screws to reset this. And it does have a 0 stop. So let me just grab a coin here and we'll take a look at that 0 stop. Okay, and it has a 0 stop, a gear and tooth style 0 stop. So once you have your turret or your reticle zeroed out, just attach the before you attach the turret back on, you just unscrew these set screws and then just drop down and set the tooth right against this gear against this tooth, and it'll be a solid 0 stop. Or if you don't want it, you can just keep it above that tooth and it will go spinning as normal. And we have, it's an illuminated reticle. It has 6 levels of illumination with a off in between, so that's a nice touch. And it is very nicely knurled. It is very aggressive. You should have no problems if you're wearing gloves in cold weather. Interestingly, the parallax focus, which goes down to 25 to infinity, it's expanded out, almost like a built-in wheel. So it gives you a little bit more leverage as you're turning this. So, and it is turning quite smoothly without too much effort. So that's nice. And let's just check out our magnification. Oh man, this is really stiff. It is smooth, but very hard to throw. My buddy Alex over at Affordable Optics mentioned this, but man, without that throw wheel, oh man, I would have a hard time. And don't know why this is so stiff, but hopefully this loosens up. But if you were in really cold weather, and right now it's about 65 degrees here, so not cold at all, this is just really super stiff. Okay, and our fast focus, also a little bit stiff, not too bad. I mean, I'm able to do it with my fingers. I'd have a hard time. Yeah, I am really having a hard time with my fingers on this magnification wheel. But yeah, our ocular focus, not too bad, and smooth. Has an interesting, it's interesting that they put a lens cap at the very end that isn't flip up. The fronts are flip ups, but the rear is not. It's just a traditional, just a single cap, like on a spotting scope or a telescope. I wonder why they went that route and not put a flip up on the back too. Let me know why you think they might have done that. And check that out. It has a logo that is not like their logo. What is that? It's like some sort of triangular thing. Yeah, don't recognize that logo. Let me know in the comments if you recognize that logo. That's kind of strange that this logo differs from their main logo. Anyway, otherwise, it is a solid looking piece. It does pick up the finish, which is matte, does pick up any bit of dust or scratches. I mean, they rub off, but it does pick up fairly easily. Otherwise, this looks like a solid, it feels like a solid scope. So again, really nice. Well, let's take this out to the range and outdoors to check out, and we'll see how good it is optically. All right, it is a cold and breezy day here in Northern California. We're expecting a storm in, but today seems a little clearer than yesterday, so it's a good day to be testing out this scope. Now, we've got it at its lowest power, and we're looking at the peak of Mount Davidson, approximately 1,300 yards away. And we've got a bit of clouds over here on the top, but you can see the difference. You can compare the difference between outside of the lens and inside of the lens in terms of color, quality, saturation, brightness, and contrast. So you can compare these two, and we have it at its lowest power setting of 5, which gives us our best overall image quality through the glass here. So I'm just going to leave it here for a second so you can just take all of this in, because as we bring up the magnification, we're just bringing up all the errors in the glass we're going to be magnifying that as well as losing light as we're passing through more glass elements. So let's do that. Let's crank this up. And this is a first focal plane scope. And as we bring this up, and this is a really, like I mentioned earlier, it's a very tight magnification ring. It's really much more of a struggle than I'm used to for this particular scope. And I'm going to try to block off the sun from behind us here a bit, but that is at 25 power. And we're looking at the peak there. We didn't lose, we didn't shift in terms of point of aim. We didn't lose any eye relief and or focus. So those are good qualities of the glass there. You can see a good detail on that reticle, which kind of reminds me a little bit of the Leupold Horus in terms of the number of subtensions in the Christmas tree below there, but you can see a good detail of the Christmas tree there. Now, that white object just to about the 3.5 mil to the left of the center crosshairs and about 3 mils up, that is a trail marker sign. It's about a 5-6 foot tall trail marker sign with about a 30-inch metal sign on top of there. So that's a fair proxy for a steel target at this distance. And again, this is about 1,300 yards away at the top of that hill there. And we're looking at this for the changes in terms of brightness, contrast, detail, and color rendition. All right, let's take a look at this illuminated reticle. And we're going to use this tree 50 yards away as an example. Let's say if you were hunting in the woods, or if you were in a twilight or low light situation, your background, if it's dark or overly complicated like this one, can make it hard to make out your reticle and differentiate it from the background, basically to see your reticle, especially with a first focal plane scope and low power, like in this one it's 5 power. It's very hard to make out the very thin central reticle. So having illumination can help. So let's see if it does. We are at off right now. This is 1, off 2, and this is, first 2 are compatible with night vision, so the fact that we can't see anything shouldn't be surprising. Off 3, off 4, off 5. I'm starting to see a little bit of glow in the center. Off 6, and I wouldn't call this quite daylight bright, but it is causing the very center cruciform to glow, and you can see much more clearly when I close up the front lens cap. There you go, there's your illuminated reticle, just the very center cruciform. So not quite daylight bright, but it would be helpful in a low light situation. And what we can also see here is quite a bit of chromatic aberration. It's a little disappointing how much there is actually with this particular scope. Next, I took it out to the range to give it a practical test to see what targets look like from a typical distance of 100 yards. Mounting it onto my AR, the scope rings gave me plenty of clearance even with a 56mm objective bell. I could have probably even gone with a slightly lower set of scope rings. Alright, before we look through the glass, I want to ask you a favor. Hit the like, subscribe, and notification bell buttons. It's absolutely free, and it really helps me grow this channel. Thanks. Okay, as before, we're going to start with its lowest power setting of 5 magnification, and then we're going to bring it up to 25, and we're looking at targets 100 yards downrange. I'm sorry, the magnification ring is a bear. Now don't mind the focus on the camera, that's the camera, that's not the... Oh. Let's see if we can do... Back us up a little bit to 9 power, and let's see our range of adjustments. Quite a bit. Alright. Pretty generous there. Let's see what our windage is like. Okay, that's the end there, no dead clicks. Over to the right, yeah, but a target's worth, no dead clicks on that either. Alright, let's bring this in and do our box tests. Target sitting there on that little corner there. Let's go full rotation on the elevation, full rotation on the windage, back over on the elevation, whoops, 1 more, 2, 4, and over on the windage. Okay, we are back. So it went to the bench. So there you go. Box test did work. So we're going to do our turret abuse test, or AKA the nipple twister, coined by my buddy Cyclops Joe. And I'm just going to turn the hell out of these. All right, let's see if it returns to 0. We're back. Okay, so it passed the turret abuse test. Now for the optical resolution test, we're going to use a still image so we aren't distracted by wind or heat shimmer. Now because a digital camera is not the same as the human eye, I'm giving this a small 20% digital zoom to give it a more realistic sense of what the view is through the scope with a naked eye. Now starting with some subjective impressions here, I'm actually not seeing very much or not noticeable chromatic aberrations in this image, which is surprising compared to our earlier illumination test. There's a barest hint of purple fringe at the very top edge of the smaller paper target on the left, as well as the top edge of the gray color chart on the center. And that is a bit of chromatic aberration, why that color chart isn't sharper than it looks right now. And also notable is the lack of distortion at the outer edges of the image. Pretty even sharpness from the center all the way out to the outer edge. Just the barest hint of a little bit of a softening, but really it's pretty good from center to edge. Now let's take a look at the smaller paper target on the left. You can clearly make out bullet holes on the reactive sticker target, which isn't surprising, that's what they're designed to do. But what's important is I can also make out small .22 caliber holes below that sticker target as well as at the lower edge of the paper. And for me, this is a practical benchmark for any scope. Can I see a .22 caliber or .556 caliber hole on paper from 100 yards? Now for a more objective measure, let's take a look at that white paper near the center. That is the US Air Force's optical resolution chart, and with my naked eye I could make out both horizontal and vertical lines in element 3 in group -1, and that's pretty good. Hey, thanks for hanging in there. This has been longer than my typical review videos, but if you've enjoyed it, please remember to hit the like and subscribe buttons and the notification bell. I covered a lot of stuff in this review because there was a lot of stuff included with this scope, and often that's a bad sign when they cram lots of cheap accessories with a mediocre scope, but in this case, the accessories you get were of surprisingly good quality and actually pretty useful. The scope is pretty well built, with nice turrets, and you saw for yourself through the camera footage that the optics are pretty good. Certainly, it's not going to compare with a Leupold or Burris, or an Arkin EP5, which this scope often gets compared to because of the similarities in oversized turrets. In optical quality, the Arkin SH4 is probably a closer equivalent. And I've reviewed both of those Arkin scopes, so you can watch my videos and let me know in the comments what you think. Okay, I told you what the scope isn't. Now I'll tell you what I think it is. A pretty good deal, because at the time of recording this video, the scope, the accessories, the entire package cost less than 400 bucks. Personally, I think this scope is a little too bulky and heavy for hunting, but if you're on a budget and you're just getting into long-range shooting at the range, the Discovery is something to consider. And if you're interested in picking one up, look for a link in this video's description or in my written review at moondogindustries.com. Please use those links because it helps support this channel with a tiny commission and you're getting the product for the same price. Well, I hope this video was helpful and thanks for watching. Moondog out. Hey, I'd like to know what you thought of this video. Leave me a comment or chat with me on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, MeWe, Instagram, or Locals. And if you want to see all of my videos, go to moondogindustries.com.